Good afternoon, students, my dear participants, our guest of honor, Debanjan. Debanjan Chakraborty, I can take the liberty of calling him by his first name, though his designation deserves that respect. He is the director of British Council, East and Northeast, an accomplished academician, actually Dr. Debanjan Chakraborty, but we are batchmates from university, and Debanjan has always been very should I say, intellectual in the sense that he's been very focused on what he wants and what he wants to do, and that is how all of you should try and emulate. We'll hear from Debanjan in a moment, but before that, I would like to thank all the participants, all of you who have come here to present your paper, and those who have presented their papers online. As the convener of the conclave, my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you. We have tried to take care of all of you, try and accommodate all of you at your given timings, and because this conclave is very dear to us, to this entire department, to the Mass Communication and Journalism Department of Sister Nivedita University, each and every one of the faculty and the students have worked very hard to make this conclave a success, and dare I say, standing today at the valedictory session, that it's been an extremely successful conclave that has gone glitch-free thanks to the tech team. They have put up a commendable show, so because of them, all the online sessions have gone without a break, and we are very happy about it. Like last time, we'll also bring out a publication. There will be some suggestions, some changes, minor changes that we'll ask, and all the presenters will get about 30 to 45 days time to submit their final paper with their corrections, additions, alterations. Once again, I would take this opportunity to thank Dr. Minal Parekh, our dean, who stood like a rock, and just I used to go to her and say ki tension hocche ho jabe to Minal, तुम करो ना मैं हूँ ना, ये जे तुम करो ना मैं हूँ ना, this gives you that strength to go and do the impossible and ask for impossible things from her, and she gets it done. So, and to Shoikot, to Tanushri, to Jhumur, to Shovik, Namashish, everyone, Udit, the Shotyajit, KD, Krishnendu, every one of you for putting together such a great show for the last 3 days. VC sir has come. So before I take your leave, I would request sir, VC sir, if you could say a couple of words. দেবাঞ্জন বলবে আপনার পরে, অ্যান্ড তারপরে আপনি ফেলিসিটেট করবেন দেবাঞ্জনকে, তারপরে দেবাঞ্জন বলবে, আর আপনি আগে প্লিজ আমাদের we have successfully navigated through 65 papers.
So dear participants, I'm sure right now if you just go back what you started with on 25th and where you stand now, how many things you have learned during this period, how many different informations you gathered during this period, and what is actually your opinion regarding this interrelationship between the media, culture, and the society. So on the first day I mentioned to you that I preferred the word evolution because that is related with all the 3 points. So I'm sure that you will also understood from the different speakers, and very, very eminent speakers actually delivered this. So you all actually came to know about it and have your own opinion developed what it should be. And that is actually the most important thing when we interact with anyone who has got into their mind to get an interrelationship between these 3 different things. But what is really amazing is the way this particular conclave been done in the last 3 days, starting from 25th. I really want to thank the whole team of mass communication and journalism, uh, because starting from the inaugural program with Joydeep and the selection of the different speakers, selection of the papers, and all the papers have been deliberated during this particular period. And at the end, you have someone who is also again another personality who is very important to discuss about the whole thing. We are actually interacting regarding these things for number of times, and I'm sure today you will hear from him about his views on this particular subject, but the valedictory is something where we want to summarize the whole thing. And that is where presence of our esteemed guest, Dr. Debanjan Chakraborty, is very important. So again, on the first day, if you remember, I mentioned our leadership, particularly the Dean Madam, Professor Meenal Parekh. I really convey my deep sense of gratitude and congratulations to her. And definitely, she was so successful, she is so successful because of the teammates. And each member of the teammates are so good and coordinated the whole program in such a nice fashion. But I should also mention the role of the students of this department. Their support and their participation is also something which is really appreciated. And I really convey on behalf of the whole Sister Nivedita family, students, we are in love with you. Thank you.
Now I would request VC sir to kindly felicitate Dr. Debanjan Chakraborty. Sir, 1 घंटा. ऊपर तो 1 घंटा. Debanjan, I will not allow you to sit. If you can come here. And Debanjan is the guest of honor, and he will give the valedictory address. Please, Debanjan.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm never sure whether it's good afternoon, where good afternoon ends and good evening begins, but I think it is good afternoon still. First, very big thanks and congratulations to the department, the Journalism and Media Department of Sister Nivedita University, for having organized this fantastic national conclave on media. I'm reminded of my own student days at Jadavpur when we would take part in national symposiums such as these and as students. Arnam just told me that there are 65 papers that were submitted from 39 universities and colleges from across India, and that is just phenomenal. So a huge congratulations to all of you who have been instrumental in organizing this, and a big congratulations to the students from all over India who have taken part in this. Thank you also to my friend Arindam for inviting me, and to Professor Minal Parekh and all colleagues for organizing this, and always to Professor Dhruv Chattopadhyay, from whom I learn so much every time I meet him. I mean, yesterday we were on a panel, and I've said this, and I mean that very, very sincerely, because Dhruvodaya has been, is a towering intellect and an extremely knowledgeable person. And of course, one of the finest education administrators. We are indeed very fortunate to have Dhruvodaya here. The reason I think Arindam invited me is probably not because I'm an intellectual. I don't think I am. But very many years ago, I did read anything by Graham Greene. So Graham Greene was one of the most towering, notable fiction writers in the 20th century, but he was also a journalist. And journalists kept creeping into his fiction time and again. And among the 32 odd novels, both published and suppressed, that exist from Graham Greene's body of work, there are 6 novels which have very prominent journalist characters, including the novel that Graham Greene is probably most famous for is called The Quiet American. And this is set against the background of the of what was then French Indochina, now Vietnam. And as the storms gathered over that part of geography for what became then the Vietnam War. So Greene was quite prophetic in his in foretelling or foreseeing political situations. He was deeply interested in politics. He was for a while, I think this wasn't so much out of conviction, but I think his sense of just intellectual curiosity and an element of mischievous poking fun at the establishment, he declared that he was a card-holding member of the Communist Party of Great Britain. This landed him in great deal of trouble later in his career, because he would often be denied US visas, and many Greene critics argue, and quite convincingly, that the reason why he was denied a Nobel Prize despite being, I think, nominated, he was a serious contender for many years, was because of his very left-leaning politics. But I looked at those fictions, but as part of the background research that I did, I also looked at the rise of what we would today call mass media. So what happened in the early 20th century across Europe and in the UK in particular was what we recognize today as tabloid journalism. That came up in a big way in early 20th century. So from between 1904 and 1925, we see the emergence of the surge of a whole range of tabloids. I mean, Daily Mail is probably the most significant of them, but a whole range of them came up in the UK. And the trigger for this massive rise in newspapers, particularly tabloids, were the series of Universal Education Acts that Britain legislated, and also European countries had similar legislations in the late 19th century. So across 1870s, we see the British Parliament enacting universal literacy laws. And this is quite relevant for what's happening in India today. And what happens is this creates, from the end of the 19th century to early 20th century, very rapidly, Europe and UK in particular becomes almost universally literate. So people can read. And this gives rise to two streams of popular culture. One, as I said, the tabloid newspapers. And the second is very interesting. What we view as popular fiction or pop fiction, that became very, very popular. And beyond the social and political acts, such as Universal Education Acts, there was one other very important technological progress that drove the surge of popular newspapers as well as popular fiction. And that was the expansion of the railway network across the UK. So it is a very interesting coincidence that as people started availing more and more of large-scale public transportation, that coincided with the massive rise of literacy in the UK. And that led to the rise of these two popular forms in the media. The rise of popular fiction is very interesting because many of them, there was a particular term used for that in contemporary British culture called penny dreadfuls. They typically cost a penny. And dreadfuls because there was this whole snooty deriding of these popular tales of romance. There was some element of luridness to it, and they were very chatpata, spicy kind of novels by the standards of the time. And they were all very short. And there's a very interesting correlation between tabloid newspapers and these penny dreadfuls. They were primarily meant to be read on railway journeys. So with the rise of the expanding railway network, commuter towns came into being in the UK. So the great metropolises of 19th century, the industrial powerhouse towns like London, Manchester, Birmingham, Glasgow, Edinburgh, a whole number of new towns sprouted within commuting distance of these big production houses, and workers or officials in hundreds and thousands started living in these sort of commuter towns and commuting to their workplace, much as what we consider as quite standard. Those of us who have been living in Kolkata and surrounding areas, we are aware of the suburban trains, very famous in Mumbai as well. I mean, that culture of commuting is very much an early 20th century function societally, and happens because of the rise of industrial revolution, but also the massive expansion of the railway networks everywhere. And these neo-literates, let's call them neo-literates, they needed something to while away that 1 hour or whatever of commute. And therefore, tabloid newspapers and penny dreadfuls catered to that. If you study early tabloid newspapers and the language of the penny dreadfuls, there is, you will notice, striking similarity in many of the descriptions. I mean, the tabloid newspapers in the early 20th century were probably less political than they are now, and there was a lot more focus on murder and gruesome details of, and of societal scandals, that sort of thing. And from this ferment of newspapers and popular fiction, there are some very interesting genres of literature that start sprouting quite prominently, particularly detective fiction. I mean, if you think of Arthur Conan Doyle, he is writing within the same milieu of where tabloids dominate, where penny dreadfuls dominate. But the great guru of all of that was Edgar Wallace. Edgar Wallace wrote, among many, many novels, I mean, many of them exist as films, some fantastic films even today. One of them is Seven Steps. Edgar Wallace, at one point of time in early 20th century, was regarded as the most popular author in the world. I forget the numbers, but at one point of time, I mean, he was widely translated and probably the most iconic international author, if not the literary figure in the 20th century. And in America, there was the rise of James Hadley Chase. And one of the very interesting facets of James Hadley Chase and Edgar Wallace was they were churning out novels like a factory. Edgar Wallace famously never actually, after he made his name, he never actually sat down and write. He was again taking advantage of new recording technology. He would dictate his novels, and he had an army of stenographers who would, and editors who would then put them together, clean them up, iron out the inconsistencies. So this almost factory mode of novel, churning out, popular fiction came into being. And that closely was modeled on what was happening in the newspapers, the tabloid journals. I'll stop there in terms of what was happening internationally and at the beginning of the 20th century, because that does sound incredibly far away now, about 100 years back. Consider the fact what's happening in India currently. Since the late 1990s, India has had a tremendous rise in literacy. I think with the start in the 1984 Right to Education Act, and right up to 2020 with the National Education Policy, if you follow the policy landscape of education, you will notice that significant resources and provisions have been made by the government and across India by state governments within our federal structure to improve access to schools and massively increase fundamental basic literacy and numeracy. And there is a lot of data to support that this has happened. It's not all just big talk. India, I think, when it comes to young population, I mean young learners as we call them, the age between 3 and 9 years old, I think India has near 100% literacy across the country. I mean, it's not quite 100%, but hovering around 94, 95%. And while there's been a dip during the pandemic, I mean, the broad direction of travel remains the same. And similarly, India's networks, the physical networks, and thanks to modern technology, the other digital networks have expanded tremendously. There is strong analogy between expansion of what happened early 20th century with railway networks in UK and in Europe, between what's happened in India because of the expansion of the digital network. Mobile phones, particularly because of expanded data availability, is again ubiquitous. Certainly in urban India, it's near universal, and across rural India, it is still an extremely high number. India has one of the largest penetration of mobile telephones in the world in terms of the size of population and its GDP levels. So that is an analogy between railway expansion, and therefore fueled by similar trends in rising literacy and rising network connections, physical or digital. India has reached the same kind of cusp in society and politics that is driving media consumption, India's voracious media consumption. And of course, we keep hearing disparaging terms like WhatsApp University and all of that. And that, I'm not saying it's untrue. I mean, there's a lot of fake news that travels. But I think as media students, all I'm trying to do is make some connections, join the dots across major societal, political, and technological paradigm shifts and how they connect, and urging you to see the big picture and make similar connections. Arindam just said to me as I was thinking about what to say, he said that also talk about future of journalism and media. So what is the future of journalism and media in the 21st century, in the first quarter of the 21st century? I would say, have you heard the term VUCA, V-U-C-A? Hands up from among the students if you are familiar with the term VUCA. Anyone? Have you heard VUCA, this acronym? This acronym is often described in management contexts as V stands for violent or variable, U for uncertainty, C for complexity, and A for ambiguity. So you're looking at a VUCA world, which is either violent or variable, maybe violent and variable. It's uncertain, it is complex, and the world of journalism that's staring you in your face is also very ambiguous. Now, this context leads to three specific challenges. One is the rise of artificial intelligence. And this, again, as I said, coincides with the rise of social media. And this is leading to what I characterize as TikTokization of news. And there is, at the back of all of this, there is a deep convergence of technology and content that's taking place. So I think that is, those are some of the things that you need to keep in mind. The third element that I'd like to flag up is societal and political polarization. So this is beyond technology, this is what's happening at a societal level. So societal and political polarization. And this is just stating facts. I'm not making a value judgment on whether it's good or bad. But as students of journalism, you have a choice. You can either be part of that polarization or you can push back against it. So that choice is yours as student of media and journalism. And I think the choice you make today and for the immediate future will determine where our country goes, where the whole world goes. So that is one thing I would like you to take away from this media conclave. Arindam also requested me to talk a little bit about international opportunities. So let me begin with opportunities that the UK has. I work for the British Council, so it is my bread and butter to plug the UK, but I'm doing it with hand on heart, with all sincerity, because UK does have some of the finest journalism and media studies institutions for your higher studies and further studies. I'm not going to name specific institutions, but please get in touch with me or go to the British Council website and I can put you in touch with colleagues who can guide you specifically if you are interested in media and journalism studies. The future, again, internationally is in terms of aggregation of news, and think about media and journalism, all of it within the wider context of creative economy. Globally, there is an immense push for making creative economy the flag bearer of economic activities, because creative economies are non-extractive in nature. Creative economy, economy-driven economies are sort of more sustainable for a greener future. And finally, I would end with this idea that there is increasingly, this is a trend that we are observing, I am personally observing internationally, is there is a tremendous demand for the need for deep knowledge of the global south. And this is where I think as students of media and journalism, you have a huge advantage coming from India, that you have lived experience of India and its complexity and ambiguity. And I think decolonization is a major global theme, especially in media houses. So there are very significant opportunities when you're coming from India because of who you are and where you're coming from. I think the table has turned quite significantly globally. So with those words, I will stop here. And my final word of advice is go shine. Thank you.
Very quickly, I'll just sum up what Debanjan had said. Three very quick notes. Tabloid journalism. Students, please go and see the film Citizen Kane, William Randolph Hearst. As far as Graham Greene is concerned, I would like to pick a simple quote from Albert Camus, where he says that I would buy a blue cabin by the beach, buy some glue for myself, paste it on my navel, and then stick a flag in it, and then lie down for the rest of my life and see which way the wind of the world is blowing. So, as journalists, you need to know which way the wind of the world is blowing and be aware of it, be knowledgeable about it. And finally, he was talking about Edgar Wallace, one of my very favorite authors. Please read Terrible People. It talks about the rioting, the rise of the British journalism also to some extent in that. Terrible People I'm talking about. What a fantastic book. If you can lay your hands on it. Please, I would now request Dean ma'am to please come and say a couple of words. And also, if you could formally announce the dates for the next conclave.
So I would not take much time because sir is busy. He has to prepare for his next meeting. Thank you everyone, all the scholars who took out the time to present at Sister Nivedita University. Feeling of gratitude and thank you from the desk of the Chancellor, Mr. Satyam Roy Chaudhary. Vice Chancellor sir is already here. The Registrar, all the deans, all the faculty members from Sister Nivedita University, to all the dear scholars present here, along with the students and faculty members of MCAG department and the other departments. Standing here and praising my department would be like, boasting. But at the end of the day, the policy that I go with, the theory that I run with is a team that sticks together is always successful. It's not about an individual effort, it's always about team effort. So I'm really grateful to have such a team that works like a family, and eventually we put up a great show every year. And thank you, sir, for always sanctioning our ambitious budget all the time. And it's always like I don't leave the threshold till the time the signature is done. So that's the adamant attitude that I have, which sir has to bear with me till the time I'm here. Yes, for the next conclave, sir, with your permission, we would announce the date. It's 19, 20, and 21st September. And so this time we thought that we've done 2 national, and the third would be international conference that we are going to do. So, of course, the convener would be none other than Mr. Arindam Basu. No one can do better than him. And we are all there to support him. And we'll be there sticking together and making it happen yet again. And then, sir, finally, let us just continue with the distribution of certificates for the scholars who are present here. Thank you again, and meet you next year in more numbers. Arindam can think.
I would request Professor Shaukat Mujumdar to come up and carry forward the program, the certificate distribution. There are representatives from some colleges who would come multiple times to take their participants.
Since VC sir will be busy in another meeting, first I would like to call VC sir to distribute the certificates for the first few participants. I'm calling the names one by one. First, Adrita Roy. Yes. First, I would like to call Adrita Roy. Shomodipta Banerjee. Farhin Haldar. Farhin is absent. Okay. Syed Sadi Azim. Okay. Nidhika Kaur Ghosh. Saurav Mukherjee. Joydeep, but Joydeep is not present here. Khushbu Shah. Annesh Bilash Thakur. Oishorjo Chatterjee. Richa Gupta. Sudesha Dash. Dr. Manali Bhattacharya. Oishorjo Dhar. Manali. She's not here. Dipannita Shil. Farzana Yasmin. Yeah. Now our very own Shotyajit Shamanto. Atoshi Bhattacharya. Vimal Kumar Singh. Shayantika Dotto. Trisha Dash. Once again, our department member, Shovik Shur. Munmun Palbag. Ananya Sen. Dr. Amartya Shaha. And finally, Rilina Kanjilal and Rashmi Rai Mukherjee. Yeah. Yeah. I would like to call upon Arindam to further part of the program. Okay, the formal part of this program. Okay, I would like to call another paper presenter, Angshu Singh. Please come on and get your certificate, please, from our Dean ma'am. The paper presenters who have presented online, they will get an e-certificate. We will send them the e-certificates on time. Now I would like to call Professor Jhumur Dattagupta, HOD, Mass Communication and Journalism Department, to offer vote of thanks.
Good evening, respected delegates. All good has end, so does this year's National Media Conclave, which was organized by Mass Communication and Journalism Department of Sister Nivedita University. 10 sessions, 65 paper presenters, eminent guests, session chairs from industry and media education across India graced the occasion and turned this year's Media Conclave in its real national essence. Now the people without whom this event would not have been possible, our respected Chancellor, Sri Satyam Roy Choudhury, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dhrupajyoti Chattopadhyay, respected Registrar, Professor Shumon Chattopadhyay, respected Group CEO, Dr. Sanku Bose, our CFO, Mr. Shubir Rokshit. I express my heartfelt gratitude to them for their constant encouragement, guidance, and blessings. And of course, our Dean, Dr. Minal Parekh, the backbone of our department. Thank you, ma'am, for the constant support and you provide with us. I would also like to acknowledge our advisor, Dr. Buroshiva Dasgupta, who never fails to lead the way when we need it most. I would like to use this platform to thank two of my senior colleagues and the convener and the treasurer of this conclave, Professor Arindam Basu and Professor Shoikat Mojumdar. National Media Conclave is basically their brainchild. They had put their heart and soul in it to make it possible. And a thank is not enough for the superheroes of our department. Our technical wizards, Namashi Sharma, Shotojit Shamanto, Shobhik Shur, Kishore De, Udit Sengupta, our designer Shumon Chakraborty, who worked nights after nights to make this event possible. And regards to our silent player, Tanushri Mehra, who coordinated the whole event. Thanks to Jonaki Pandit and Shushmita Dash for your support. And a big hug to my students who not only joined this session, but also actively coordinated the whole event. Not to forget our musical mastermind, Joydeep Mukherjee, and also the Oyon and team who are going to perform. Big thanks to them also for your musical creativity. These 3 days has been a very engaging learning experience for us. We'll all cherish this experience for long. With these positive notes, I close this year's National Media Conclave, but with a musical note is actually waiting for us. And thank you so much. And I would like to mention that our third chapter of National Media Conclave of SNU will resume from 19 September 2024. Thank you so much.
Two days back, 25th, we started our media conclave on a musical note. And this time, we have decided to come to the end to draw the curtain with also a musical note. I would call upon our dear faculty members and research scholars of Sister Nivedita University, Mr. Oyan Mukherjee, Mr. Shayanto Ganguly, Mr. Akash Neel Chaudhuri, and Mr. Himal to come on stage and perform in front of us, and the stage is ready for your team.
Check, check. Hello, check, check. Hello, check, check, check. Hello, check, check. Hello, check, check, check. Hello, check. Hello, 1, 2, 3. Hello, check. Hello, check. Hello, check, check, check. Hello, check. সামনে উপস্থিত আমাদের শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকাবৃন্দ এবং আমাদের যারা স্টুডেন্ট আছেন, আমাদের এই মিউজিক্যাল পারফরমেন্স অ্যালং উইথ ভোকাল আমরা আজকে লালন সাইজিকে নিয়ে একটা গান করছি। ভুল ত্রুটি ক্ষমা সুন্দর দৃষ্টি দেখবেন। তারে ধরতে পারলে মন বেরি দিতাম পাখির পা কেমনে আসে যায় খাঁচার ভেতর চিন পাখি কেমনে আসে যায়, খাঁচার ভেতর চিন পাখি কেমনে আসে যায়, তারে ধরতে পারলে মন বেরি, ধরতে পারলে মন বেরি দিতাম পাখির পায় কেমনে আসে যায়, খাঁচার ভেতর চিন পাখি কেমনে আসে যায়। আটপুটুরি নয় দরজায় আটা, মাঝে মাঝে ঝরকা কাটা, আটপুটুরি নয় দরজায় আটা, মাঝে মাঝে ঝরকা কাটা, তারও পরে সদর কোঠা, তারও পরে সদর কোঠা, আয়না মহলতায় কেমনে আসে যায়, খাঁচার ভেতর চিন পাখি কেমনে আসে যায়। ভেতর কাঁচা বাসে মন তুই রইলি হাজার আশে। খাঁচা যে তোর কাঁচা বাসে কোন দিন খাঁচা যাবে খসে কোন দিন কোন দিন খাঁচা যাবে কোন দিন খাঁচা যাবে খসে কোন দিন খাঁচা পড়বে খসে লালন কে দেখো কেমনে আসে যায় খাঁচার ভেতর চিন পাখি কেমনে আসে যায় খাঁচার ভেতর চিন পাখি কেমনে আসে যায় তারে ধরতে পারলে মনো বেরি ধরতে পারলে মনো বেরি দিতাম পাখির পায় কেমনে আসে যায় খাঁচার ভেতর অচিন পাখি কেমনে আসে যায় খাঁচার ভেতর পাখি কেমনে আসে
Now I would request all the participants who've got their certificates to come up for a group photo. Please, all of you come. Hi. ये के डाक ना